Hello and welcome to another review of Drones Visual. Today I would like to introduce a new product from Flysky. If I recall correctly, the last product from Flysky I showed you was the Flysky FS-i6X that has become a rather popular transmitter. Well, this new release from Flysky is a little bit different in that it keeps the looks of the older Flysky transmitter, yet it introduces some changes to the firmware, as I will show you later. The new Flysky transmitter has been labeled Flysky FS-i6X, and I believe it will come in a bundle with a new receiver called FS-X6B. Now I have over here the prototypes, or at least I've been told so, of the two, the transmitter and the receiver. What I will do today is do a brief introduction of the transmitter, take a look at the firmware and see what's different in the menu, then cover the receiver and what it seems to offer, and at least try connectivity in PPM mode. Then I might release some other videos if time allows with some more testing. So okay, now without further ado, let's get started. The first thing that I would like to do is to go right away and take a look at the firmware version of this transmitter to see whether it differs from other Flysky transmitters that I have over here. Those of you familiar with Flysky transmitters will have no problem whatsoever navigating the menus, as they pretty much remain the same, although I will show you some differences that I have spotted. Once we get to the firmware option, we will notice that this is a rather new firmware. It's from July of this year, version 1.0, and notice that the name of the transmitter is FS-i6X. Now, to quickly contrast it with some other transmitter from Flysky that I have over here, if we take a look at the firmware, we will see a different name for the firmware of the transmitter, and of course an older version of the firmware. Now, let me tell you that upon initial inspection I did not notice any difference except one that I would like to show you. Now again, those of you familiar with Flysky transmitters are probably not seeing much of a difference indeed, but if we look carefully, we see this RF standard function has been placed instead of the previous option that was there in the older transmitters. Also, the so-called PPM output option from older versions is gone, and a different option has been introduced further down in the menu that I will show you now in a moment. To get to that option, we need to continue scrolling down the menu all the way, and then we will see the option called output mode. Let's go ahead and take a look at what this option offers us. As soon as we enter by pressing the OK button here on the right, we will be able to see that we have a choice, we're given a choice of selecting between PWM, PPM, iBus and S-Bus. Now, to again contrast it, let's take a look at a regular Flysky transmitter that I have over here with an older firmware, and you will notice that it only has an option to activate, to turn on or off the PPM output here. While the FS-i6 will offer basically those four output options that you saw. Together with the transmitter, we might find this receiver, the FS-X6B, that seems small in comparison with other receivers from Flysky that I have seen. Here you can take a closer look at the receiver, which we will actually inspect with more details a little bit later in the video. Along with the transmitter, we get these connectors that you can see over here that will allow us to connect the receiver via PWM to the flight controller of our choosing, then a couple of connectors for other ports that will allow us to use PPM or iBus connections. Now let's go ahead and take a closer look at the receiver to get a better idea of what it offers. When inspecting the receiver, if we take a look here at the upper section, we will notice a couple of buttons. One is a binding button, while the other is the update button. And pretty much their functions are kind of explicit. If we take a look here on the side, we'll see a micro connector for the antenna, from which a tiny antenna emerges. I hope you can see it well because it's kind of tiny, but let me tell you that this is a prototype. In the final version we'll get two antennas, and that's pretty awesome, I think. The next thing is a rather obvious thing, which is this sort of metallic shield that is probably enclosed in critical section of the board to prevent emissions, or to prevent actually emissions from other portions of the system that could be affecting sensitive circuits located right under it. Right on the side of the shield we can see the iBus port, which is basically a two-way serial protocol that Flysky uses, and it should actually give us up to 18 channels. Wow, that's kind of amazing. Then right next to it we will find the PPM port, and then this that you can see over here is the PWM output port, this large section that you can see over here. Looking at the bottom of the receiver, we will see the microprocessing unit, is this black square over here, and then you will see another port. This port that I will show you right now here is actually for the voltage sensor to your receiver, and it will support batteries from 1S up to 4S, or up to 18 volts, so keep that in mind. Right under the PWM output, we will see this pin basically labeled ground, channel 1, channel 2, channel 3, and so on and so on, so you can get a better view here from below. The Flysky FS-6B weighs around 4.5 grams by itself, which is not a lot, I think. Then if we want, let's say, to use PWM mode, well, that will add maybe around 4 grams more, so it will be around 8 grams, although if you're using iBus or it will be less, or PPM. Then you can see here the size, well, it's kind of around 3.6 in length, something like that, I'll say. And then if we looked at the width, if we take a look at the width, it's sort of like 2.3 centimeters, I'll say. So now let's really quickly compare it to other known receivers. We can see that it's rather similar to the D4R2 from Flysky, yet considerably larger than the F800 and the R6D from Radiolink. I assume that some of you are familiar with these receivers, so you probably get a good perspective, I guess, in terms of size, as you might know actually these other receivers over here. Now, to connect the receiver via PWM, you can use the wire bundle that comes included and plug it into the connector for PWM. Then you will connect the channel power and ground connectors accordingly to your flight controller. Then for the PPM or iBus, you can use the other smaller connectors. The one on the right next to the shield is the iBus connector, and then the next one, which I'm connecting right here, is the PPM connector. You need to kind of like press it well, otherwise it won't actually go all the way in. Now I would like to tell you that to bind the receiver to your transmitter, you must press the bind button and keep it pressed before powering the receiver. The Flysky X6B will be FS-i6X, I'm already going crazy with these names, will be compatible with all transmitters that use FDS2A, which is a sort of automatic hopping frequency that Flysky transmitters use. When powering this receiver, please keep the binding button pressed, otherwise you won't be able to do the binding. And then you know how to do it basically with the transmitter, just like the older Flyskys, you keep the binding button pressed while turning on the transmitter. Let's go ahead now and do a really quick connectivity test to see if we get it going in PPM mode. I have over here an old quad with a CC3D board, and I'm going to test connecting the receiver in PWM mode. In PPM mode. After binding it to the transmitter and configuring in OpenPilot, we have it over here hooked and ready. The next thing I will need to do is go ahead and power the receiver. In this case, the receiver will be getting power directly from the flight controller to which it's connected. Notice that the red light in the receiver is blinking. That's because we have not connected the transmitter yet. As soon as we connect the transmitter, the light will stop blinking. But well, you probably already know that, so maybe I'm talking too much. Something I noticed is that I was not actually getting the internal voltage like you can get with other Flysky transmitters. Although that's not actually the battery voltage. I think if you want to actually get the battery voltage of the of your battery, you need to hook a voltage sensor to the plug that I showed you before for the battery voltage sensor. for the voltage sensor. Something important: when you configure your transmitter, jump into the so-called secret menu and make sure that the auxiliary switches you need for the flight modes are active, or for any other thing you want to use, because by some reason they were inactive. So if you experience some problems during the configuration, it could be that by default they were all off. It's kind of weird, but anyways, just good thing to know, I think, if you have any issues. Let's really quickly now unblock the motors to see whether it actually works. And yeah, it seems to be working fine, and also the flying modes are working okay as well. So I guess it should be already fine to place it in a quad and go for a flying session, and also test, later the iBus and the PWM modes, but I will leave that for future videos. I want to add that because I think I have not mentioned this, that the range of this receiver should be of around 300 meters, and it should take somewhere from 4.8 to 8 volts. So keep that in mind. I guess it's more oriented to those of you flying mini FPV racers within that range. That would include me, actually. I usually don't go, maybe 400 meters, but I think 300 meters is fine for me. I would like also to state that this is actually a prototype. And before I finish the video, I actually received what I was told that it was a final version that I would like to show you now really quickly. It actually comes with 2 antennas instead of 1, which is actually great. And I would like to add that it's possible to upgrade the firmware in this receiver without needing to connect it to a computer or anything like that. It can be done all wirelessly. Okay, this will conclude my initial overview of the Flysky transmitter and the receiver. So again, it's nice to get this smaller transmitter with nice connectivity possibilities for smaller multi-rotors that allows expanding from, all the way from 6 channels in PWM mode and going up to 18 channels in iBus mode, although I have not tested that yet, but that's what they say. And it offers the possibility to connect a voltage sensor to get actual battery voltage, and I would also like to state that it supports a low voltage alarm, and it can be updated wirelessly. So okay, please, if you found my video interesting or it helped you in any way, hit the like button and drop me some comments that I will certainly appreciate. Also, if I say something stupid, and believe me, sometimes I do, don't hesitate to drop me a comment. I think we will all benefit from that. Those of you that are interested in the topic of drones and I would like to get the latest news directly from China, don't hesitate to subscribe to my channel, and I hope to see you all in my next video.